fuck's going on there, Hop Wolves? It's time to Howl at the motherfucking moon. We have another super, super sick interview. I mean, it's always sick. You know that. We know that. Got your boys, Arie Lombardozzi, Todd Bailey, a.k.a. Italian Ice and Pole Skeet Skeet, with our good friend, ZaKrahe, on the show today. How you doing there, homie?
Oh, I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Doing well. Can't complain at all, man.
We've been trying to plan this for a long, long time, and can't not start off by saying we've mentioned this a bunch of times on the podcast, which is Brewtal. If you guys don't know that already, you should probably check it out. But if not, whatever.
You
fuck off.
Too, by the way.
Yeah, got a drink. Boom.
That better be straight vodka.
You know it.
So Zach is the creator of our intro, our very lovely and brutal intro. Again, drink. Before we get into like what we want to talk to you about, we also want to talk about just, how did you make that intro so sick? Like, it just sounded pretty much like exactly what we wanted it to. And I don't know if there's really anywhere to go there, but like your magic is on there. And we really appreciate that. And we use it for the actual show. So, thank you for doing that for us.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. I don't always get to write like that vein of metal. Like I guess I shouldn't say don't always get to, but I don't often have opportunities where I can justify spending time writing that vein where I'm like, oh yeah, and it's so much fun. So it's like a nice breath of fresh air, and it was just a blast. It was really cool to do. I can't think of what the few reference tracks you guys sent me, but I ended up adding like all those to my gym playlist too, because I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty sweet. Like this is.
I know one of them was Structures, and
yeah.
For anyone listening, this is the first lineup of Structures that featured so many other members, but the Structures now is like only 3 people. So tread lightly if you're going to their discography, because it's a whole different band now.
So, like, when you have different members, this is totally, like, derailing, but I'm just curious to get your guys' feedback on this. What's your stance on, like, when a band changes a lead vocalist? Like, do you guys feel like it's a new band? Or... Because, like, the people are really divided on that.
It's interesting you say that, especially given what is arguably and controversially one of the most popular bands in metal right now, Bad Wolves, because that has completely changed people's outlook on that band. And it's... Who knows if it's and their trajectory too. But for me, I don't know. I'm so big into the lyrics of a band and basically the vocals as another instrument to the band that it does change so much for me. And like there's times like I can't like continue listening to a band if they do switch. And sometimes it's for the better, sometimes it's for the worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same vein. It just really depends. Like the biggest one that comes to mind is Killswitch. I mean, you have your Jesse Leach camp and you have your Howard Jones camp. And I love both eras of Killswitch, but I like them for different reasons. Like musically, it's always been Killswitch, but delivery wise, like whenever I listen to stuff from End of Heartache that Jesse is doing, like it still sounds great, but like I just see Howard. And vice versa, like when they would play stuff off of Alive or Just Breathing, like I would see Jesse while Howard was doing it. So like I think it's just tough because that is like, the front man or woman, whoever is fronting the band, like that's the image you have most of the time. But again, like not too long ago, Slipknot's Joey Jordison, passed away. And Joey was such a big part of Slipknot that when he left the band, it'd be like, well, how are they going to do this? Like, it's one thing if Corey left or like one of like Jim or Mick or something. But like, if you're like that much of a driving force, I'd be more concerned. Like if you left Amavasya for some reason, like I'd be like, well, fuck, dude. Like, I don't know about the band anymore, because like when I think of that band, like I think of you. And even though like there's other components, I guess it's just really whatever I kind of latch onto, depending.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, I'm always curious about that because, like you guys know, and I'll probably bring them up 45 times. Like, I'm a huge Iron Maiden fan, and like I've been like super into them for like 3 or 4 years now, and I'm amazed at how many people like like swear by like Paul Di'Anno, who was like on their first 2 records, like over Bruce. And it's like the dude was with the band 38 of the 42 years. And it's like, you still define it by the first 2 years, you know? Which is interesting because like you're saying about Killswitch is like, I was someone who got into Killswitch when the End of Heartache came out. So I was used to Howard, and then I went back. And then when Jesse joined, even though that was a return to their roots, I was still more like, yeah, but it's Howard, like it's Howard's band, you know? Yeah. But for the record, I'm a huge Jesse fan, though. So,
see, I'm an Arie's, but I like them both so much that like the ones that they were on, like I wouldn't want them to redo it,
right,
with the other person. So it's always so weird because there's certain vocalists, you know, if you're lucky enough to get that vocalist with such a unique sound to his voice that it's like this is that guy. Losing him and going to someone else, I mean, could end a band or like they have to rename or something.
Yeah. Sorry to completely just derail everything. I was just curious.
Well, no, that's an interesting question.
That's a good question. Who's doing the interviewing here? Stop it.
Yeah, what's happening right now? So we see a Step Brothers. Like, do you mind if we ask the question?
Should have worn a tuxedo t-shirt. God damn it. No, I mean, I think that is a really good question. And of course, we're going to talk about Iron Maiden at some point. Wasn't expecting it this soon, but that's okay. I mean, I guess with kind of piggybacking off of that, you have such a diverse spectrum when it comes to music, like metal, just for the sake of the show here, but just music in general. And that really plays into your work with ZaKrahe, your solo project, but then anything you really touch. So like, let's get into your influences a little bit, because I am very curious, because you have a very distinct sound, but also it's versatile, which is cool, because like, especially in metal, that has a tendency to be like so elitist, where it's like, this is the only type of metal that I listen to. Like, these are the only bands that I'll listen to. And like, the mindset's a little bit more closed. What influences your playing, your writing, anything?
So like sticking to more of the metal side of it, like, so I grew up like when I was getting into playing guitar, I started playing guitar before I knew what music I liked. And so like I kind of just like had a guitar, was like I want to play guitar, and had no idea what I liked. And then I found Megadeth, and so that was like my first exposure into like, oh yeah, you know, I heard Hangar 18, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Nice. And so like I started with like the 80s stuff, which I think is why now I still connect with bands like Maiden and like you know, like those types of things. But then like I almost immediately got into bands like Bullet For My Valentine. Like when I got into them, it was like right when Scream Aim Fire came out. And so like that was a huge part. And then like Trivium, like I bought Ascendancy, and like I'm pretty sure I broke the disc like 10 times. Like I kept buying it because I kept overplaying it. But yeah, I mean, I think to kind of get back to what you were asking, I think when it comes to like writing and everything, I think it's you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot if you only listen to one like genre of metal or like one genre of music. So like I listen to like all types of music too. Like I'm really into like, you know, tons of different stuff. Like I listen to like lately I've been listening to a ton of just like fingerstyle acoustic guitar, you know, things like that. But like I always joke that I'm like, oh yeah, don't send me deathcore. I don't care about deathcore. But even like when I make that joke, like stoked on the new Fit for an Autopsy record, like absolutely stoked on it. The first time my buddy showed me Animal by Brand of Sacrifice, like immediately connected with it and like, you know, like jumped right into it, you know?
For sure.
So I think it's just important to just, you know, at least for me, like I try to have an open mind, like with all that stuff, you know? I was bummed whenever a band puts out a new record. I try not to read any posts or like reviews or anything about it till I hear it. And so Rivers of Nile put out their new record, and I was waiting till the whole thing came out to just experience it as one thing. And I saw so many people complain about it, and I was like, no, come on. And I listened to it today actually, and I was stoked on it, and I'm glad it didn't ruin it for me. But like that, like if I didn't enjoy it because I saw other people not like it, you know, if I would let it ruin it and I was like, I'm not going to check it out, that would have sucked. I would have missed out on that, you know?
For sure.
So I think it's just important and just, you know, to have an open mind. You liked it?
I'm so glad you brought it up. I love it. And I am fully aware of what every other past album of theirs sounds like and like their evolution. And I don't get what people are saying about it, but as long as I enjoy it, I guess that's the payoff. Like,
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, everyone compares it to. I'm totally gonna blank on. I always mess up the actual name. Isn't it like Where the Owls Know My Name? Isn't that their?
see, that's the thing. When you come off of that album, which is considered like a masterpiece, like everyone is just gonna be like, I want that part too.
Well, and to me, it's the same thing as Colors, like from Between the Buried and Me, like Colors and The Great Misdirect. Like if you hear The Great Misdirect in a vacuum, it's so incredible, and it's absolutely incredible. I just saw when they did their 10-year tour of it, and they played it front to back, and I'm like, man, this record is so good, and it's overshadowed because it followed like one of the greatest prog records of all time, you know? And it's like,
I was gonna say Colors is my favorite, so I have actually, I haven't listened to Colors 2 that much just because I'm so nostalgic of the first one. Tell me why I should listen to number 2. So, because I feel like I'm going to ruin the first one in my mind, but I feel like that's not the case.
Oof, man. Oh, this interview is just going to be me talking about Between the Buried and Me for the next 2 hours. So I'll preface with this. So Colors was the record that got me into progressive metal. Like that was the album that I was like, oh, you can do like a lot of this crazy out there stuff. Parallax 2 is my favorite record of all time. Like I think it's a perfect record.
Oh, interesting.
So for me, it's like Parallax 2, Colors, which is like right there. Colors 2 still has the novelty for me, but in a few months when that's worn off, it might rival the first Colors for me.
Okay.
That hypes it for me. I just have to dive in. That's what I got to do. I just got to dive in. Give it its due.
Have you listened to it at all?
Just a few singles.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, you do have to experience it as a whole thing. I wasn't a huge. I liked it, but I wasn't like a diehard Coma Ecliptic fan. And to me, this album sounds a lot like Colors. Like, because they reference Colors like crazy because it's Colors too, but it also has a ton of the Coma Ecliptic influence, which is really nice because they have more of their like death metal influence with that like Queen prog rock anthem-y stuff, and so it's just this really nice fusion of those two things. And dude,
I'm okay with that. I like thematic. I like cinematic. I like the journey. We always talk about the journey with music. Like we really that's why I love this latest Rivers of Now. Because it's just this whole journey, and I like that they added more peaks and valleys to their sound.
Yeah.
So that's I think
a lot more rock on the Rivers of Nile, the new record. Like a lot more just straight rock riffs and stuff, which I was like, okay, this is sweet. Like this is super cool, you know.
It actually reminded me a little bit of Deaf Heaven. They completely changed their sound, and they're much more softer, poppier shoegaze, if you will, coming off of that black gaze genre. If you I hate genres.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But they did this total departure, and I was like, this softer stuff of Rivers and Owls sounds a lot like this Deaf Heaven stuff, and I'm totally fine with it.
Nice.
It just kind of gives you more of a snapshot too of like where the band is at, and I mean, whoever is the main songwriters or however a song or an album comes together, but like it just really shows you that, you know, that's where their mindset is. So with Rivers and Nile, like Between the Buried and Me or whoever, Maiden, because Iron Maiden's new album's fantastic, but it's also Iron Maiden. So like that was kind of inevitable. They've been doing this for almost 50 years.
Yeah.
And and it's just really cool. But also at the same time, like to what you guys were saying is like, you cannot capture like that lightning in a bottle, quote unquote, like again and again and again and again. Like you're just in a different mindset. You're viewing things in a different way. Your influences are going to be changing, and it's good and bad. Like if you can hear a record and say like, oh, cool, like that's Between the Buried and Me. You're like, cool, like why is it Between the Buried and Me? Is it like Between the Buried and Me like Alaska era, like Silent Circus era, or is it like you said, Coma Ecliptic? There's such a wide variety that the band can pull from, and that's one of the many things I love about Between the Buried and Me is like they could do whatever the fuck they wanted to because they've been doing that for so long, and it doesn't work with bands like that. Like you mentioned Bullet For My Valentine. We're super stoked on the new Bullet because like it's aggressive and it's heavier, and it's not like when they tried to do like these radio rock anthems, which they can do, but like to a certain extent, like, I mean, you have like your Tears Don't Fall, but then you follow it up years later with Tears Don't Fall 2 that no one fucking cares about. At least I don't. I don't know if you like that record or not.
Temper to Temper didn't happen, man.
Exactly.
I refuse to acknowledge that.
That's their sane anger for sure.
Yeah, and okay, so specifically Tears Don't Fall Part 2. I remember I was so excited because I was just like, it's so cool. I'm like, it's going to be like The Unforgiven. Like, they're going to do a whole series. And I was like, I'm for it, whatever. And I remember it started and I heard him say, let's go again. And I just shut it off. I was like, I'm done. Like, this is so lame, dude. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. And I love Bullet. I'll probably catch a lot of shit for this. But, like, I loved Gravity. I thought Gravity was a killer record.
I thought it was too.
Not necessarily as a Bullet record. Like, I'll give people that, where, like, to me it sounds like a Matt Tuck solo record, and I did really like that. Like, I was like, this is sweet. Like, honestly, if he went into pop, I think he'd kill it. But I'm also really, really stoked that they're doing a self-titled where they're going to be grumpy and angsty again, and that's awesome. Like, I'm so happy about that.
What's cool, at least for me, like coming back to a certain sound and a certain mindset, is that, like, again, like, that's what they want to do. Is like they're not trying to please anyone, but hopefully themselves. Because, like, I feel like, again, like, you can't have every single album be a fucking masterpiece. And one that we'll talk about all the time is like Suicide Silence. Like, they have their self-titled, but it sounds like a Deftones album. And like, it's good, but it's just not like what a normal Suicide Silence album would sound like. And then they came back to form, quote unquote, and everyone's happy again. Be like, cool. Like, you know, we needed to do something like that to get back to what we like doing. Cause I'm sure it's gotta be both fulfilling and maybe like monotonous playing the same songs like night after night on tour. And that's something I will always remember. I took like this film seminar when I was in college about being a production assistant on set. And this one guy, basically like his story about how he rose from just a mere PA to like assistant director, which is super cool on big films. And he was talking to a musician who I will never remember who it was, but it was someone really, really fucking big. I'm going to use Bruce Springsteen just as an example. But he was like, dude, the assistant director would ask Bruce, he's like, that's so cool. Like, what's it feel like to play to 60,000 people like every night? He's like, cool. But like, you know, I kind of envy what you do because it's different every day. Like, I'm playing the same songs that I've been playing for so long. So I mean, I guess muddling through what I'm trying to say, it's got to be like, again, both exhilarating and kind of maybe like, dude, I'm sick of playing this. Like, you know, being a musician that's played many, many live shows, like, how do you fare from that aspect? Like, do you still get super stoked every time you play something off of like Terra or with Amavasya? Like, you know, you're playing Clarity again for like the umpteenth time. Like, does it still hit the same? Like, does it still hold the same meaning for you over the years?
At this point, I would say yes. Like, I do still feel, there are songs that like I'm definitely not as stoked on. Like, there's we always joke that one of our songs on Fruition doesn't exist. Whenever we're always like, yeah, we're like, it goes from the album goes from Clarity right to Fruition. And like, we always skip Riptide because like none of us in the band like that song. But like, so like that song was one of those things where like we kind of got tired of it. Okay. But yeah, no, I mean, like, I'm also weird in that way though, because like I'm the kind of person like who like for example, like just in my regular life, like I like comfort food. Like, I like watching The Office 10 times or watching, I watch Frasier like once a year, like these comfort things. And so for me, like playing these things, like I don't have kids, but like a lot of these songs are basically like my children, like, they're a part of me. And so I still get excited to play these same tunes, even if it's to the same 10 people at Basement Transmissions. You know what I mean? So, but also too, I don't do it every night, like 6 nights a week for, not to relate everything back to Maiden, but I'm going to relate everything I can back to Maiden. I was listening to an interview with Bruce, and this is after he rejoined in 2000, or I guess 99, but when he was with, Maiden again after he left. And he said that after the Power Slave tour, so this is like 4 records before he quit, he was thinking about quitting because up until that point, they would be like in the studio for 2 weeks, go on tour for almost a year, have 1 week off for Christmas, go back to the studio for like 2 to 6 weeks, and then do it again. And that was it for like a decade of that's like their life. And I remember he said that he wanted to quit. He was telling his family because he's like, I'm not doing anything. And they're like, you're selling out, wherever Live After Death was filmed, I forget, in California, like this crazy stadium, selling it out 4 nights in a row. And they're like, you're literally putting so many people in this building, they're coming to see you. And he's like, yeah, but I'm not doing anything. Like, he's like, I'm a monkey on a stage performing. Like, I'm not actually doing anything. And so I think being in that sort of environment, like, I think you would get numb to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially too is like, music is very personal, but when you get to that point, I think that you do kind of lose a little bit of that, personal side of it, because you're not playing to 10 people at BT anymore. You're playing to a room of all these faces that you're never going to have a personal interaction with outside of that moment. It's kind of a weird thing for sure.
Right.
So it's always that question of like, how big do you get before like you kind of lose touch in a way? It's kind of this balance act that you got to play, especially with music, because I'm sure as a musician, sometimes you just want to put stuff out for people to hear it and just to get feedback on. But like at the same time, there's people out here. It's just like, I want to make money off this. So it's just like, sort of where your passion lies with it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, too, I think that you said, like, where your passion lies with it. And actually, something Arie said earlier was, like, that's where they're at. And if they have to do that right now to go do the next thing, then, they're going to do that. That's kind of the way that I felt about Temper, like the Bullet for My Valentine record. Because I remember when they put it out, I heard it. And I didn't hear anything around it. I just listened to the record. And I was like, this is terrible. I'm like, I just don't like this. And then after the fact, I heard their, like, commentary. And the whole commentary was them talking about how they were just like partying and how they barely put any effort into like writing the lyrics or writing the music. Cause they're like, they're like, we were, and they said, they're like, we were partying. They wanted a record. So we kind of just threw one together. And it's like, you can tell, that, Matt Tuck on The Poison is not Matt Tuck in Temper. It's like, it's the whole Dave Mustaine thing. It's, he's not hungry anymore, so he doesn't hate the government anymore. It's like, your belly's full. So, what else do you have to prove? Yeah, exactly. I talk to him every day.
It does, of course, like get to that point, like, especially when you get older, it's like, how much like resentment, how much anger can you have towards something when you're fucking like 70 years old? I mean, no one's at that point. I mean, Bruce and Maiden's like kind of getting there and everyone's like in their 60s. But yeah, again, like Megadeth has a new album coming out, and is it going to be Countdown to Extinction or anything like all the classics? Like, no, because they're not young anymore. And it's just physically impossible unless like you take Dave off, be like, well, Dave, you had a good run, but you can't play anything off of fucking, I'll just say Countdown to Extinction is the only one I can remember off the top of my head. Peace Cells, anything like that. They're like, yeah, you're done. Get off the stage. We're kicking you out like Metallica did. Be like, God damn it.
Not again.
Not again.
Yeah, and I think as like a fan too, like I think because it's easy on the outside to be like, well, I want another Rust in Peace, and that's honestly how I feel about like Maiden too, like their new record. I really like the new record, but also too, I did go into it with the mentality of like Nico, their drummer, is 69 years old. I'm like, he's not going to be like how he was on Peace of Mind when he had something to prove and he was in his late 20s. Like, and it's just being like realistic about this, especially in metal where so much of it is like the energy and like the intensity. It's like people get old, like people like get weaker, and also, like you said, it's hard to be angry when you're 70, or I guess that type of anger. It's like a different anger. It's more of a get off my lawn anger than, but
just thinking of a metal band called Tarantino, and that's all. That's all they talk about. What he's angry at in his movies.
Well, being such a big Maiden fan, have you ever seen them live?
Yeah, I did. I saw them back in 2010. It was just Dream Theater and Iron Maiden. It was on the Final Frontier tour, and it was hilarious because it was before I knew who Dream Theater was, and so we got there 20 minutes late. And we walked in and Dream Theater's like shredding, you know, and then they play for like 10 minutes like straight since when we got there, and they end, and James Labrie goes up to the mic and he goes, and that was our first song. And like we're all cracking up because they were probably playing for 35 minutes at that point or something.
Right.
And, yeah, but it was really cool. I saw him at Blossom outside of Cleveland. At the time, I was like 13 or 14, so like I wasn't super versed in their music, but I remember like they did Blood Brothers, and I remember like all of Blossom was singing every guitar part, and I just remember like that was like literally the moment that I was like, yep, that's what I want to do. Like I want to play these like predictable guitar melodies that everyone can just scream out and have fun, you know, like that's so good. Really cool.
Dude, hell yeah. I saw them on that tour, but in Pittsburgh.
Nice.
And it's we'll talk about this from time to time, but like being like a religious experience, that's the closest thing that I will personally ever have to like a religious experience. It's just seeing a band that I love, because I saw it with my dad, and he was a big Maiden fan, so like just having that experience and like seeing Maiden, like it's kind of circling back. It's crazy to think that like Bruce has the mindset be like, well, I'm not doing anything because like I'm on the stage and like I'm just here for your entertainment, which yes, essentially, but like it means so much to like so many other people. But again, like you kind of get numb to that, and it's just a weird concept. But to kind of segue, talking about touring and whatnot, you have new material out. You're going on tour for the first time since the pandemic. Have you give us the whole rundown for your solo project, because this is relatively new within the last couple of years, correct?
Yeah. So I technically I started the solo project in 2015 or 2014. I forget. It's when I quit Bravura, which was the band I started before I started Amavasya. And so I was working on a record, and then I started Amavasya as like a meme. And so then the solo group kind of took a sidestep, and then we ended up liking Amavasya, so we kept doing it. And so yeah, my first actual release was in 2019. I played one show, which was the album release show, and then I moved to Texas, and then the pandemic hit. So actually, the first date of our tour is going to be my second show with sick. This project. Yeah, which is like really exciting. It's like really exciting. But yeah, so we're going to see what happens. We're only going to be out for, I think it's like 9 days, like 9 or 10 days. We've got a few like weekdays that didn't get filled. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Playing only 2 songs that are off of Terra, and I'm only playing 1 song off of the EP, and I'm playing, I think it's like 8 songs. So most of the stuff is unreleased material, which is going to be a ton of fun.
That's sick, dude. Because I remember seeing that you had a whole like full length written for your solo project, but then you did the EP that just came out, correct?
Yep.
So like, is the unreleased stuff like gonna be on the full length, or is this some like totally different?
Nope. This is a lot of this is coming from that full length. When I moved to Texas, so when I finished Terra, I started writing for my full length before I even put out Terra. And then when I moved to Texas, you move to a state where you don't have any friends for 4 hours away at the very least, and you don't do much. So I just wrote a ton of music. And so I recorded it, and actually the whole record's been recorded except for like a few guest solos, and like I think I have to go through and actually record like the bass. But outside of that, the record's written and like mostly recorded, which is really, really nice. And I've been sitting on it because I didn't want to put it out during the pandemic because I was planning on touring on it. So last August, I did what I did with Terra, where I wrote an EP in about 6 weeks. I sat down and I wrote the whole minimal EP, and I tracked it out before the new year, and then put it out in the summer. So that was kind of just like I want to put something out every year. I don't want to put out my full length in a vacuum, so I'm gonna put out an EP. You know, but yeah, it was a ton of fun.
That's awesome, man. And I think I also saw that for at least for this one, the minimal EP, that you did -1 guest solo on the EP. You did everything yourself, including the promo stuff, the video work, all that. Take us through that experience, because it's a lot of work that a lot of people like. Recording an album is enough work, and then you put some other things, I guess in this case, kind of like fillers, quote unquote, but they all take time and they all take effort. So like, what was that experience like?
Yeah, stressful. I mean, definitely stressful. So with Terra, I did everything. So I record all the instruments and all that myself, other than like the stuff I program, and then I mixed and mastered the record. But then I hired like Zach Kubiak at Prophesy, designed the music video, and then I have a graphic artist named Dixon, whose his company name is Intuitive Designs, who did like the album artwork. And so he actually did my full-length artwork too, which is awesome. I can't wait to share that. I'm so stoked on that. But when I was doing minimal, I went into it with the mindset of like, your budget is your time, and that's it. Like, this EP is like, you can put as much time as you want into it, but outside of buying like guitar strings, like, you can't put a lot of money into this. And so, yeah, so I'd wear a couple different hats and like get a little bit better at things like graphic design and things like that. And I already had some experience with it. But it was a lot of fun. It was really, I've never done anything. I really appreciate visual art, like a ton. Like I actually like visual art just as much as I love music. But I'm not talented in that way, and I'm not gifted in that way. So I'm one of those people who appreciates it a lot, but can't do it very well. So I've been trying to get better at it. But yeah, it was a really cool process though. And it had a different sort of payoff than Terra, because like, it was cool to like open up Spotify and be like, hey, that artwork I made, even if it's not great, I did that, you know? And like, now I'm like, I'm doing my own like merch designs for this tour. I did 2 t-shirt designs that I did myself, and like, it feels cool, you know? C2A kind of does that, where all of his stuff is like basically entirely himself. And so he's really inspired me to like work on those other sides and try to do as much on my own as I can, which is a lot of fun.
I thought it was interesting, the name of the EP being Minimal. Was that kind of like how you got the name? Be like, I want to put like all my own time and effort into this without like doing everything minimalistically?
Actually, what's funny about that is I didn't put that together till just now, I guess, in a way. So the answer is no. Actually, the reason why I wanted to call it that was I was being kind of ironic, because like I overproduce my music so much, where like I'll have like a section and I'm just like, okay, strings, piano, like, you know, like 7 layers of guitar. Like, I just love just being obnoxious. And so the whole point with it was it starts with just that like chill acoustic, and then it gets into a huge overproduced thing. And so it was, to me, it was more just me being an ass, like just being like, yeah, it's minimal, like it's minimal music, and then it just is obnoxious. But yeah, I mean, I guess that also works for it too. And all that being said, like, I really liked it, and I probably will do that again for another EP at some point. But like, I also don't want to send out the message where it's like, I hate working with people, because like, I do really like working with Dixon at Intuitive Designs. Like, he's if you're familiar with, I mean, you guys are, but whoever's watching this, I guess, he has done all of the Amavasya artwork. And he's nice. Like, he's just as much a member of that band as I am at this point, like helping us capture like the visual side of what we're trying to do. And so working with people like that, especially having like an outside influence, I think is so important when it comes to the creative process. And like, you know, because like if I wanted to do like with Minimal, if I wanted to do something like, I don't know, like a bird turning into a shark or something, like I couldn't do that, you know? And then he would probably tell me I'm dumb and that he's not going to do it either, but he would do it better than I would.
Now, does he listen to your music for inspiration to do the art?
Yep. So when I sent him, he did 2, I'm trying to remember because it's been a few years at this point. Yeah, he did 2 of my single artworks that are going to be off the full length, and both of those he was listening to demos for like a few weeks and like getting ideas. And then when he did the full length album artwork, it was kind of the same thing, where I told him like the theme of it's kind of like it's kind of a neat theme, and so I explained it to him, and he was like, send me the songs, let me just listen to them and vibe on them. And then like, it was cool because what his take on it was completely in line with what I wanted. Oh, but cool. It also wasn't even close to what I was picturing, you know? And so so it is really cool. He does a good job of like listening to you and listening to your music and trying to complement that, you know?
See, that question came from us talking about Rivers and Al earlier, because they've used the same artist for all their albums, and they always send him the music before he creates it. And so that I always wonder about that.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. And I think a lot of people... don't give the visual artists as much credit as they deserve, because like Well, like a few years ago, there's trends with like artwork, obviously, but like how Cameron Gray was huge for a while. So like Born of Osiris and Within the Ruins, like their artwork was interchangeable. Like it was super badass artwork, but like if you switch the Elite artwork with the Soul Sphere artwork, they'd both be fine, you know?
Right.
And like Cameron Gray's incredible, and so I'm not slighting him, but like you could tell that it's like, yeah, we're going for this aesthetic, and like this guy's doing that. And so I think it's cool when you find artists who are like, who do their thing, but also, like you said, like Rivers of Nile, like is listening to the music and like being like, I'm gonna make something that's my impression of what I'm hearing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But also I'm not a visual artist, so I don't know. Maybe it's not as real as I'm making it out to be.
It sounds like you're pretty on brand for that stuff, because someone that's actually like, I feel like is also like a fan of what you're doing.
So you at least care about it, which is a good place to start.
Yeah.
Because you can definitely, especially, I mean, you talk about the visual aspect. We're all about that because that's what we do. Like, that's what we're good at. Like, tracking even an EP is beyond our realm of comprehension at this point.
I'm still figuring out audio for my edits today still.
Yeah. So it just, I think just art appreciates art. We talk about that a lot because you get so many different influences from, I mean, however you live your life. Like if you are interested in like novels and you're a musician, then your lyrics or your guitar work might be based off of something like that. I mean, we talk about all the time on the show, just crossover work, whether it be like graphic novels have been a really big thing this year, and just novels with musicians. And that's really cool. And that inherently sounds like it would work, but isn't necessarily something that happens all the time. But the inspiration is there, because like you'll get people reading like Tolkien and talking about like Lord of the Rings. We had a featured band that their whole thing was based off of Lord of the Rings. You're like, oh, this is heavy as fuck. You're like, oh, cool. Like, actually, I know what they're talking about. Like, and this is relatable to me. So, yeah, I guess rambling aside, like, I think it just really matters, like, whether you're passionate and you have an interest in what's going on there, which it sounds like you're working with people that do have that, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and I think too is you said exciting a few times, and I think that's like as a creative person, I think that's something I tend to connect with the most with people. Is it's not even like a skill thing that always attracts me to other like creative people. It's usually just the excitement. Like nothing makes me happier than like when I'm working with someone or like they're working with me and they're like, oh, can't wait to show you this thing I did. And like it could even not be the greatest thing in the world, but it's that excitement of like I created something, you know? And I think that catching that is awesome, you know, because you can't really like force that, you know? And I think kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, like with the Bullet For My Valentine record, not to just like shit on them all night, but like you could tell that quality wasn't there, you know? And so, yeah, I think that is like a cool thing to find people that are in your, you know, in your circle that are like not just excited about what you're doing, but are excited what they're bringing to the table too, you know? We've been working on the Amavasya record for way too long. And I remember I wrote one bass part on like the whole thing. And I sent it to Casey, who's our bassist. And I was like, hey, there's one part I want this to be the bass line. If you're cool with it. And he was cool with it. And he actually did his own thing with it still. And it was awesome. But I remember he was like, I can't wait to show you this one little thing I did in the song. And I remember like him sitting here and he has like the shit-eating grin and he's like, you ready? And we get there and he does this thing. And like that moment, I'm just like, yep, this is why we play together. Because like I can tell you're so happy to just like put your influence in this, you know? And yeah, I love that. Love that so much.
It's little moments like that that really make the creative process. It's like, I mean, obviously getting people's reaction to the final product is always super dope. But like just having those little moments to be like, dude, like, I wasn't even thinking about that, and you just took it to a whole nother level. Todd and I will say that all the time. Like, we do these interviews to be like, dude, that was fucking, like, that was super dope. Yeah. Like, we weren't expecting that to go, or like, that was a really good episode because we did this, and this that we didn't expect to happen. So really just taking in those moments is crucial. I think that's a crucial part of like the creative process, which stems to my next question. Going on tour, like, you do everything yourself with ZaKrahe. How do you pick who's going to play live with you, and like who's going on tour with you?
Yeah. So like in terms of my band.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Or whoever, you know, like who do you want to play with and whatnot, because you're at a point where I'm sure like you could really pick like whoever you wanted to go on tour with.
Yeah, in terms of like the band, it's always the people that I know I can rely on. And I'm very lucky that the people I rely on are also very talented people. So like I don't have to be like, well, this guy's not very good, but I know he'll put the work in. So like it's actually really funny for this tour. My drummer's Jake and my bass player's Casey. So like basically we're Amavasya playing my songs. But like both of them are people that like we only rehearsed once so far, and actually Casey wasn't there that time for something else. But like Jake, never played these songs with him ever in my life, and he showed up to rehearsal and we played a 40-minute set together, and like it wasn't perfect, but like he put the time in, and he has the skill set to be able to do that. So a lot of it comes down to that, like can I rely on them to put the time in? So Casey's playing bass, Jake's playing drums, and then one of my best friends, Justin, he's the songwriter and the guitar player of Portage, which is the band I'm touring with. And so he's playing rhythm guitar for me. I say rhythm guitar. He's playing co-guitar with me, which is really awesome. So yeah, usually it's just that. And then in terms of the bands, like because I haven't done a whole lot with my solo stuff, in terms of gigging, like I guess I'm not super picky. The thing I like about it, though, is because it is like Justin actually called it anime metal the other day, which I really liked. I was like, cool, sure, anime metal, whatever. Is like I would love. I got offered a show and then the show fell through, but like we got offered to open for Contortionist with my solo stuff for a show. And like the date ended up going to a bigger city, but like the fact that they would consider that for a Contortionist show, and like I'm going out with an emo math rock band right now, and like I'd be happy to play a hardcore show with it. You know, it's like, you know, kind of whatever, you know, like in terms of who I'd go out with, just do I dig their music? But in terms of like what shows I'd play, like I'd love to do basement shows with this. I'd love to do, you know, bigger stuff, you know. I'm just happy to be playing these tunes for people, you know. Excited to get out of the basement a little bit.
Dude, we should get you hooked up with one of our alumni, our newfound friend. His name's Andy. He has a band called Midgar over in the UK. But like what you're talking about, like he would tell us the same thing, because like they have heavier songs, but most of their stuff, it's like cinematic rock. And he's like, we get put on a bill with like all these hardcore bands. People would be like, well, what the fuck? Because like they're not the same thing. Yeah. So I personally love when the bill's like that varied, where if I have to say like, what the fuck? I was like, cool. Like now we're talking. 'Cause of course, like I love seeing, like, you know, going to a deathcore show and be like all the heavy hitters, like that's what I want. But if I'm going to like anything else, be like, cool, like give me some diversity here. Like I just saw Amigo the Devil the other day, and like it was sick, dude.
I'm jealous
sick
too.
I know you're a big fan.
I'm a huge Amigo the Devil fan. Yeah.
If you ever get the chance, like please do, because it's just as much as musicianship as it is like stand-up comedy. Yep. Like he just keeps
Dude, that's
riffing.
what I love about it, just the mixture of those two. Yeah. Like
he's like, and like you said, it's so human. I think that's what it is, because he's like one of my favorite songwriters right now. I think he's probably in my top 5 favorite lyricists right now. But then he can also like joke about his dick in front of a room full of people, and it's like, yeah, I'm my kind of guy. Like doesn't take himself too seriously.
Yeah, it's great, dude. And like that was honestly one of the most fun shows I've ever been to. Like not even just like of recent memory, like just ever, because of that fact alone. And again, like the bill was so varied because he does like his murder folk, quote unquote, spiel, and then like the second, like the band under him was like rockabilly type deal, just like real folk, like just really fun, like drinking and shit. And then the first solo act, she was like really like super folky. So it was like same spectrum, same vibe, but very different.
Yeah.
Not to go off on a huge tangent, but like that would be really cool to get like such a varied bill like that. And you guys have the chops to do that too.
Well, what you're saying too, like I'm sure, because I know, Todd, you said you've been out of Erie for a little bit, but Arie, you haven't been out super long. But Alex Cirilla, who does Gimp Guy Productions in Erie. You know, he's been booking shows for a while now. But like some of my favorite shows he ever did was he used to do punk versus metal shows where it was 3 punk bands and 3 metal bands. And I mean, like, you know, it basically sometimes it'd be a night of all hardcore bands, but it was like that crossover, and it was super cool because I remember like I was in high school and my Trivium ripoff band would play like second to last, and then Barlow, which was like a noise rock. Actually, I think they're in Pittsburgh now. This like noise rock, kind of weird post-rocky influence stuff would headline. And it was so cool because you would have these like sweaty, gross, tattooed like metal dudes. And then you'd have all these like cardigan wearing, like kind of emo, like, you know, whatever. And it was such a cool thing because everyone was out there and just like, you know, alternating and hearing, you know, it's different. Everything's different, you know, and I love that stuff, you know. But we were talking about that earlier. Also, I listen to everything. So I get like if a lot of people like tend to like have the things they like, I could see being like a little annoyed if you want to go to a metal show and then you're listening to like, you know, a noise rock band or something.
I mean, nowadays you can Google everything. You can listen to every band before you go. So that's on them.
Yeah. And for a $3 all ages show, you know, you can't really complain.
Yeah. Well, sir, I don't have any more questions. Do you have anything else, Todd, before we let Zach kind of plug away, do the shameless self-promotion there?
I mean, part of it, I did have one, and part of it is leading to the plug, is just, you know, if there's any aspiring musician out there that wants to learn guitar, and this will kind of get into you doing teaching now, just, you know, what would you say to someone, you know, that's like maybe getting into the instrument and then maybe getting into more complex music that could be metal, could be jazz, anything like what would you like tell them?
Yeah, not specific to the instrument, but anyone who's got an interest in music and really any creative thing is like, don't be ashamed of what you like. Like what you like, and then it's as simple as that. Like I had growing up, I got bullied for a lot of the music I liked, and like fortunately I had friends who also liked that music, so it was fine. But like I've had students who are like kids who come in and I'm like, oh, what do you want to learn? And like they're like, oh, well, I really like this band, but like we don't have to learn that. Like I know it's kind of weird, and it's like, no, it's fine. Like what you like, you know. You know, there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure. You know, like what you like. Specific to guitar though, like I would just say be patient with it, because if you've never played an instrument before, guitar is kind of a tricky one because it's got a steeper learning curve at the beginning than like some other instruments just because the physicality of it. So like if you're learning, especially like acoustic guitar, like you actually have to build up some hand strength when you're playing. And like you have to get used to holding a big piece of wood on your lap and then also sometimes holding a pick. And there's a lot to it. Like a lot of people don't think it's, you know, that crazy, but there's a lot going on. I always tell people, just be patient with yourself. Like when you're first starting, you know, just take it slow, have fun with it, you know, and then if you feel awkward, yeah, everyone does. It's cool, you know. And then like in terms of like more complicated stuff, like if you're getting more into the higher end of stuff, is just not to fall into the trap of music theory is evil, but also not to fall into the trap of music theory is life. So like it's really easy, and I've been on both sides of that throughout my life, and I'm probably more on one side right now than I should be anyways. But there's this misconception with music theory that it's this evil thing that's going to stifle your creativity. And then you point at bands like Between the Buried and Me and Dream Theater, and you tell them like, hey, no, you're good. Like, you know, it's okay to know. Yeah. I always say it's like cooking. Like music theory is a lot like cooking, where it's like if you're cooking a steak is a terrible example. Let me think something. If you're
that's
cooking,
actually a great comparison regardless, just cooking in general, because like you can either cook something down to the science of it, or you can kind of just roll with it.
Yeah. But like I always tell people, like with cooking, like a steak was a bad example, but like if you're pan frying something, I don't know why I can't think of something you pan fry. If you're pan frying something, like Twinkies. Understanding you can put olive oil in the pan so it doesn't stick, you know, like something like that. It's like there's nothing wrong with knowing that olive oil functions that way. Like it's okay to know that. You don't have to be like, oh, I threw a random liquid in there and I got lucky, you know. And I feel like a lot of musicians feel like, and I think it's because it's art. You know, people are like, well, you can't have proper nouns. And it's like, no, it's okay. We're allowed to label things. But also, too, is like, It's a Duke Ellington quote, and I never say it right, but it's a paraphrase, I guess. As he says, if it sounds good, it is good. So it's like if you write something and you can't justify it, but you like the way it sounds, guess what? It's cool. Like, then just do the thing. Don't think about it any further. You're good. You know. It's really easy to get stuck in that rut of I think this is wrong, so I'm not going to put it out. You know.
For sure.
And more often than not, someone else out there thinks it's cool too. So
yeah,
to your patience.
Exactly. Yeah, look at Between the Buried and Me. Like, you know, when they were doing their like polka stuff. You know, I'm sure a lot of people, I'm sure when they were doing it, I'm sure they had hesitations at first. Like, are people going to like this? Like, you know,
playing polka?
Yeah. Should we be doing a 12-bar blues in the middle of a death metal record? Yeah, why not? What happened? See what happens.
Which is so great because, like, if you're like a really big fan of that band, to be like, cool, Tommy Rogers is like a huge Counting Crows fan, so like that shouldn't surprise anyone. Yep. To have like such a diverse sound, and it kind of circles back to what we were saying before. It's just like having different influences. Like, it doesn't always have to be what you make. Like you can have, you're allowed, like you said, like what you like you can have other interests other than like what you're doing or what you're known for, as long as it's cool, as long as it makes you happy.
That's what makes the new crossovers nowadays. So
yeah,
I hate genres. Like, that's where black gaze came from, because someone was like, what if we mashed black metal and shoegaze together? What would happen? Like,
yeah. No, and I think it's cool, like, having that approach to it, because it's kind of like mad scientisting it, you know? But also, too, like, I do agree, like, it's so frustrating when it's like, oh, I like this band, what's their genre? And then it's like a sentence, and it's like, I don't care. Like, it's not that, like, is it metal or is it like folk? Like, just tell me the basic idea of what this is so I know what I'm signing up for.
That's very true. That's every time we have to describe a band on our podcast, we're just like, it's metal. It's something.
We like it.
But I mean, to kind of spiral off that, let us know what you got going on nowadays. I was basically leaning into you're now doing classes in Northeast Pennsylvania, which is not far from Erie, if people don't know that. So talk about that first, and talk about what else is going on.
Yeah, so I've been teaching music professionally for like 8 years now. And so I mentioned earlier I moved to Texas. I moved to Texas for a teaching gig, just private lessons. And then COVID hit and I came back. And so I opened up a storefront where I'm giving private instruction now, guitar, bass, ukulele, piano, like concepts like music theory, if people are interested in, like songwriting, things like that too. So it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's basically just me instead of in my apartment being in a storefront. But it's kind of like a cool space, and there's a big enough room where you could, like jam with people and stuff, which is really nice. So I've been doing that, which is really cool. I'm really thankful for that. Northeast is a really cool community. I was really hesitant about not doing it Northeast, but starting an LLC and doing all these startup costs, because, starting a business costs money. And it's been the first like 7 weeks, I think. And it's been going great. So like if this trajectory keeps going, it's going to be a good thing. And then I guess just like in terms of the more like passion project-y and stuff like that, like the music performance stuff, I gig out around Erie with a cover band called The Band Hamilton, and we kind of do anything from 60s to modern day stuff. We tend to play like most of the Police's stuff. We do a lot of we do some John Mayer, we do a lot of Tom Petty, and then everything in between all that too. We do a lot of Michael Jackson, things like that. We do some Michael McDonald. So it's like kind of just fun stuff like that. Yeah. And then in terms of that, we mentioned earlier, I've got 2 records out. So I got 2 different EPs and then a single. I'll be on tour October. I should have written this down. October 15th, I think, through like the 24th or something. It's like mid-October. And then that's going to be on my solo stuff. And then the last plug I'll do is the band that I have the most the most effort and money I've lost on is Amavasya. And we, I don't know what I'm supposed to say about it yet. Honestly, like we were all like, oh yeah, hush, hush. But, we did, our record's done. So that's really cool. And it's been done for like 6 months. So like I have it like on my computer right now, and it's stuff's going to be out this year. So if anyone has any interested in checking out the new wave of Amavasya, you can definitely check that out this year.
If you had to describe it in a couple words or an adjective, how would you describe the new record?
Good. No, I don't know. I don't know.
Shoegaze.
Doing the genre thing would be hard. I will say, kind of like we were saying, like doing the next thing you feel like you should do. This record has that feeling for all of us, where we're very much like, yeah, this is the next thing we should be doing. So it's really cool, and we actually, I know I can't say one of the things about it, but we got some really cool people involved with the record too.
Right on.
So that's very excited for that.
Yeah.
There's someone really cool who played a big part in the record, and we're very happy about it. So,
other than that, if you want to sort of plug in some of your social media, if people are interested to follow you, they can follow Amavasya on their social. But what's your personal stuff?
Yeah, so all my personal stuff, if you just type in my first two initials and my last name, so ZA, and then my last name is KRAHE, and I'm on like Instagram, Facebook, I think it's ZaKrahe Music or something on Facebook, and then I have a YouTube channel too that I push some things towards. Every few years I'll put a couple covers out or something, but nothing too major. But yeah, I mean, I think I use Instagram the most. And then I just forward everything to Facebook from there.
So we do too.
Oh yeah.
It seems to be the trend.
It's easy.
Yeah, exactly. I love like logging into Messenger and seeing like 15 missed messages for like 3 weeks, and it's like, yeah, just don't get on as much as I used to. But
well, cool. Again, Zach, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you, buddy.
And practice what you preach. You were patient with us to even do this.
And peach.
I appreciate it.
Patience and peaches.
Yeah.
That'll be the title of the episode. That's always churning on our minds. Like, oh, that line was good. That'll be the title of the episode.
Yeah.
But seriously, thank you for taking the time. Stoked to have you as a friend. Stoked to have you as the person, as the creator of what is the intro to Brewtal. That's what people hear every day that we put out a new episode. So kudos to you and what you do, and we're excited for what's to come. You already had me hyped on this new Amavasya record, so just release it, damn it.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Well, just so you know too, everything's like set. So like it's all automated at this point. Like it's distributed, like it's out of our hands. Nothing's announced yet. So that's why it's like, what am I allowed to say? Like everything's done. Like we're kind of just sitting here right now. So
right on.
All right. Well,
that's a good place to be in. It's just like, all right, we're waiting.
After like 2.5 years, it feels pretty nice to be like, okay, cool, we're gonna put something out now. This is great.
Hell yeah. We're gonna give people a taste with we're gonna play the song you wrote right after we get done talking. So enjoy.